sports are really important vehicles for relationships.
We have purpose. We have a why. We bring people together. We connect.
I feel like God is our greatest supporter and our greatest coach.
Welcome to Rabbi on the Sidelines. This is Rabbi Sherman from Sinai Temple in Los Angeles. This is the podcast where we speak about the intersection of sports and faith. This week, we are joined by an amazing advocate for Israel. Again, I put that first. A Jewish role model and happens to be a basketball coach. Coach Bruce Pearl, head coach of the Auburn University Tiger men's basketball team. Previously head coach at Tennessee, Milwaukee, national championship in 1995 at Southern Indiana. 4 conference championships, 4 conference tournament championships, and appeared in 1 Final Four. The second fastest to reach 300 wins, only behind Roy Williams, named Coach of the Year in 2006, and some Jewish basketball accolades. The coach of Maccabi USA team in 2009, gold medal. First president of the JCA, the Jewish Coaches Association, and the Algerminer named Coach Pearl, one of the 100 people positively influencing Jewish life in 2022. It's a pleasure to welcome Coach Bruce Pearl from Auburn, Alabama. Coach, it's so great to have you.
Rabbi, it is wonderful to have you. I really do need to go to Shabbat services and occasionally Rap Tefillin more often to be called a role model as a Jewish man. But it is so good to be with you, and thank you so much for your work.
Thank you. And it was one of the last times we were together in shul was here actually at Sinai Temple, which we'll talk a little about later. Today is actually a Jewish holiday. It's a commemoration in the Jewish calendar. It's called the 17th of Tammuz, and it begins the siege of Jerusalem, leading to the destruction of the temple. So I find it interesting that we're speaking about today, specifically what you have on your shelf behind you, and that's the flag of Israel. Let's actually start there in your Jewish journey. Growing up in Sharon, Massachusetts, to Auburn, Alabama, what does that Jewish chronology look like, and why has it always been a thread that's been so important to you?
Well, Rabbi, born in 1960, just 15 years after the gates were opened and we realized that 6 million of our brothers and sisters were murdered because of their faith. That was very, very fresh in how I grew up with all of my family. My grandfather escaped Turnipole in 1929 when he began and his family began to feel the effects of anti-Semitism and the pogroms and just things like that. He was the oldest child at 11 years old, and he brought his 3 younger siblings with him without his family. And much of his family stayed behind and did not survive. And so it obviously was personal. And my papa loved Israel so much. And I remember when I was 7 years old, there was a 6-day war, and Papa never watched television. He was a plumber. He worked really hard. He didn't stay up past dinner. And this one night he stayed up, and I was watching him. He was crying. He was a tough guy. I never saw him really get emotional. I said, "Papa, what's wrong?" And he put me up in his lap, and he told me about Israel. And he was afraid to take his eyes off the television. He was afraid to go to bed because he was afraid the next morning Israel wouldn't be there. Mm-hmm. And then he explained the importance of it. And he made me promise him that time that I would also learn to love Israel and understand the importance of her existence and how really her existence was tied directly to our ability to live the American dream here in this country. My papa turned 32. 22 years after he came to this country, he told me when he became a United States citizen, it was the greatest day of his life. And nobody loved this country. Nobody loved this country more than my grandfather.
Yes. And when was your first trip to Israel? And what was that like?
2009. I tell you, in 1982, I graduated from Boston College, right? And I was going to go to Israel. Throughout college, that was my deal. I was going to go either live there for a year and then join the IDF or live in a kibbutz. That was the plan, right? And then in March of my senior year, Dr. Tom Davis gets the Stanford job. I'm 21 years old. I get a chance to go be an assistant coach in the Pac-12 or the Pac-10 at the time. And I went. And
blessed memory, my friend.
Yep. And then as a result, I'm ashamed to tell you, I didn't get there until 2009, where I coached the Maccabi. We won the gold medal, which was an amazing experience. But I've been in Israel for the 6 years straight, for the last 6 years, and I will go every year, at least once a year, for the rest of my life.
So 2009 was the first time, and it was actually then basketball that brought you there. What was that experience of? Were you in the selection? Did you say, "Look, it's my turn to be there"? How did you get to be that coach?
I'd wanted to be the coach for years because I was an assistant in Division I, not big enough. I was a head coach for 9 years in Division II, not big enough. I was a mid-major coach in Milwaukee, not good enough. And finally, I got the Tennessee job. And then the guys in Philadelphia that ran Maccabi USA said, maybe this guy that's been bothering us for 20 years, maybe we should give him a chance. At the time, Maccabi USA was not in a great place financially. And we raised money and we got tremendous help. And I coached an amazing group of kids, including my son, Steven, his best friend, Steven Gruber.
Best assistant coach in the country?
Best associate coach in the country, my right-hand man here at Auburn. Danny Grunfeld was my best player. And Ernie Grunfeld and his wife, Nancy, came to Israel and watched Danny put us on his shoulders and win a championship. Todd Golden, the great head basketball coach at
Loved watching you coach against him this year on ESPN. It was a pride for the Jewish community.
It was great pride. An all-Jewish coaching matchup in the SEC Tournament Championship. Todd was my point guard in 2009. So it just, those kids that were on that team, they became very much a part of our family. We were talented enough, but we were not the most talented team there. And we played Israel in the gold medal game, and we were down. We were down in the fourth quarter. Danny put us on his shoulders. We wound up beating them in overtime, and thank God Israel doesn't lose at home very often. I'm glad they lost that game. And the three referees were Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and I wasn't getting any calls.
And so what did that, because in a few minutes we're going to talk about what to bring your Christian players to Israel, but what did it mean to first bring Jewish players to Israel, who most of them probably also hadn't been to Israel at all before in their lives?
Well, Rabbi, what I did during the training camps was I actually brought the kids to synagogue. We brought them to shul. We did the Shabbat services because some of them had no religious background, and I really wanted them to get to understand, what they were about to experience. I brought in some former players. I brought in, some rabbis to come in and talk to them about what they were about to see, what they were about to experience. I brought a group of Jewish boys over there to Israel, and they came back better Jewish men in the sense that trying to, get them, and all you got to do is go. Look, I didn't have to do anything. Like the Spirit works, it's all right there. And they just came back better and better Jewish husbands, better Jewish fathers, and understanding the importance of loving and supporting the state of Israel. And that was our mission, and I think mission accomplished.
So I want to go to the NCAA tournament right now in 2022, when you stood actually in our synagogue just last year, and you said, "I'm Coach Bruce Provo right now. I'm Mordechai Ben Shmuel." I love that moment. I tell that story all the time because you said, I was wearing this uniform, you were wearing a uniform, but we were united by that flag behind you. And in 2022, you won an NCAA tournament game, and they asked you a question about Ukraine. And I want to just play a clip about what you said and have you comment on that.
The Jewish people are celebrating the festival of Purim. And, Purim is a celebration of what Queen Esther did. Queen Esther was with the king of Persia in the palace, and she was Jewish. And Haman was a very close advisor to that king. And he was advising the king that maybe it was time to get rid of all the Jews. Queen Esther's uncle was Mordechai. My Hebrew name is Mordechai. And I think that my family gave me that name for this reason.
That was the most unbelievable press conference. And I remember after that question, you said, well, you asked the question, right? How in that moment do you tell a Talmudic discourse on Purim on the NCAA tournament stage? What was it like in that room? What were these journalists looking at you like, this guy's a Meshuggah? Why did you do that? And why make that comparison at that time?
You that can't be planned and canned. It's just got to be something that you react to. And, we've learned throughout history that silence is complicity, and that when you see something wrong, you got to stand up and you got to say something about it. And Mordechai saw what was going on, and he had to challenge Esther to have the courage to save her people. And if she didn't, it could have been the annihilation of the Jews in Persia at that time. And, right now we're going through the same thing. We're living through that. And so whether through doing these podcasts or doing some, other, education, or, being on social media and trying to trying to teach a little bit about the religion and the Bible, and trying to teach the accurate history of the land, that it is our ancestral homeland, and these young people that are out there wanting to protest against apartheid. Who wouldn't want to protest against that, or occupation, or colonization? I would stand and protest that as well. The problem is, it's just not true. They've been sold propaganda, and they've been sold lies, and that's what the great conflict we are fighting against. So that it was just an opportunity for me to be able to stand up, and it was at the time the transition was basically calling out Iran for who they were and what they've been doing, and how. Look, I want to be at peace with Iran. We want to be at peace with the Iranian people. You more than ever, Rabbi, in your synagogue.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's what we want. Okay, but the leadership in Iran has chosen a different course to take. President Obama, all well-intentioned, absolutely believed, I do think well-intentioned, that he could bring Iran back into the world of nations, of normalization. And he was wrong, because they did not want to leave their Islamic extremist fundamental way of life and imposing upon others, and particularly for the hatred for the Jews, and the Jews being in there and being in Jerusalem in their home, and it has to be called out. Mm-hmm. And if it's not, then the lies have already out of control continue to spread. It's going to break my heart tomorrow when we see thousands and thousands of people in Washington, D.C. protesting, Prime Minister Netanyahu's address to Congress. They're just either enemies of the state, they're enemies of the state of Israel, or for some, they're just completely misinformed.
And so the misinformed, I think, is an important thing. And you have the courage, and I really mean that, the courage to actually go online. You're a public person. You're not just a citizen. And I texted you during the NCAA tournament, unfortunately, after a loss in the tournament, but you had the opportunity to go on national TV with a friend of this podcast, Ernie Johnson, Barkley, Kenny Smith. And here you are, and you wear this lapel, an Israeli and American flag. I was so touched by that. And I know I got so many texts, not about my sermons, but about that small action that you did. And you texted me back and you said, you got to wear it on your sleeve. How did you decide to do that at that moment? And what was the reaction? Both positive, but what was were there any criticism that people said that, oh, I can't believe the basketball coach is now bringing this into the stage?
Well, I think wearing the American flag and wearing the Israeli flag side by side, that's just really hard for anybody to criticize. And so I got no criticism during the course of the year. I wore it all year long, as did my staff. I love it. As did my whole staff. We wore it all year just to bring attention. I wanted to also, put on my Scotch tape and the number of days that the hostages are held hostage, and every day change that out. I did that for a little while. Wow. I wished I kind of still was doing that. Just to remind people, by the way, we've got Americans held hostage right now in Gaza.
8 of them. Yep.
And what do we do? What are we as Americans? What is our country doing to get our hostages freed from a sworn enemy? And the answer is not nearly enough. Mm-hmm. And Rabbi, we're in a position where there we go.
Go ahead.
No, we have an opportunity to lead, and I just feel a responsibility to do that.
So when you were here at Sinai, USC was playing Auburn, and there was no way that I was going to let you come here. And you had a busy schedule. I know there was practice, and you made it. Actually, I don't know if you know this because you were on the court, but I was watching the game. Bill Walton, the blessed memory, said during the broadcast, I believe it was with Roxy Bernstein, who was with you in Israel. He said, and Coach Bruce Pearl even went to Sinai Temple yesterday. And I thought that was just an amazing moment. I don't know how he knew. I don't know if you told him that you went to speak to the Jewish community or Roxy told him. But the fact that this message was getting out to the millions of people who just tuned in for a basketball game was the real deal. And so this is what you said at Sinai Temple when you addressed us.
Live and work in the African-American community because I'm a basketball coach. I live and work in the evangelical Christian community because I live in Alabama. And so one of the reasons why I took my team to Israel was because you hear so much from people when you go there. So what can we do? What can we do? Come visit. Come visit. And I did. And we were able to do some wonderful educational programs with our student athletes. They couldn't believe how welcome they were. They couldn't believe how diverse the country was. They couldn't believe how good the basketball was. And now they're going to come. They came back. And in fact, they played against Danny Avila, who's going to be playing here with the Clippers here shortly. And they've got a completely different way of looking at Israel. And
what was the reaction before they went? Was there a fear of their safety? What was it after? And then the third part, have you been in contact with any of those players post October 7th where they really understood the reality and the truth on the ground?
Well, I think because one of my goals as a Jewish man and a coach and a teacher is to bring people together. So, Rabbi, I didn't go to Hebrew school, Rabbi, and learn that Jesus was a rabbi his whole life. They didn't teach us that. And I know many of my Christian friends didn't go to, their when they read the Bible, they didn't read about that either. And so obviously Jesus provided a huge separation for the faiths instead of some commonality in the faiths. And so for me, I'm speaking to my Christian players who know Jesus and believe in Jesus, but really don't know anything about how he lived his whole life and how he celebrated the festivals every year of his life and how he was a great rabbi. And to me, that connects us. That's what I do as a coach. I connect people. And so we went and we got our players that wanted to get baptized in the Jordan River.
Love that.
We went to the Garden of Gethsemane. We went to the Holocaust Museum. We went to the Wailing Wall. And when you go to Israel, that's what it can do for you. It can bring us all together if we choose, obviously, to look at it that way. There was some concerns of safety going from some of the parents, but there was more excitement from the parents because they vicariously got to go to the Holy Land, God's Holy Land, through their sons or through their nephews or through their grandsons. And so therefore they trusted me and they were able to overcome the fear. And when we were there, there were rockets coming into Tel Aviv from Gaza while we were there. They were shooting at us. And yet the Iron Dome kept us safe. How do the people in Auburn, Alabama feel about the fact that when their basketball team was over there on this mission, that Islamic Jihad at the time was shooting rockets at Tel Aviv? And I'll tell you what, it gave our guys a different perspective about where do you go when you hear those sirens and how do you get in the hallways and do the things that you got to do to get to a safe spot. I didn't try to do much pre-trip to either teach or indoctrinate. We did a little bit so they could understand where they were going and what they were seeing.
Right.
Just wanted them to go experience it. And I wanted them, I'm a Jewish coach. They know the work that I do, but I didn't want to really do too much beforehand. And then, of course, they get off the plane. They go to the beaches of Tel Aviv. They see all the diversity. They see all the color. They see the different races. They see the different religions. They see the different lifestyles. And they go, there's not a place in the world that is more freer. I want to free Palestine. There's no place that's more freer than Israel. And so they then come back and they break down those stereotypes. They talk about the way they were treated. They talk about the experience. And it's interesting. Two of my players just signed to play with Jerusalem and Matama's team. Yeah. And two of my former players. And I know that the fact that I took my team to Israel had something to do with their comfort level of going back to Israel and playing professionally now.
And post October 7th, was there any conversation when they saw were they outward speaking or on the campus or just having those meetings saying this is real?
Yeah, it was real and it was tragic, and they were upset by it. But what we try to do is we try to do something. And so within a couple of days, through our connection with Daniel Posner and Athletes for Israel, because Athletes for Israel, an amazing organization, Rabbi, you know what they do.
Yep. They're watching, actually. They contacted me yesterday.
Well, Athletes for Israel helped take my team over to Israel 3 years ago and sort of get the ball rolling. And then I got on their board and joined Daniel. A year ago, we took Arizona and Kansas State, not only to Israel, but to Abu Dhabi. and the United Arab Emirates and the Chamber of Commerce and the ambassador actually participated in supporting Athletes for Israel to take them over there and celebrate the Abraham Accords, celebrate normalization. The basketball teams that got on a plane from Tel Aviv to Abu Dhabi was the first time that had ever happened, and it can happen again and again and again. There is hope in the Middle East. The vast majority of the Gulf Arab states leadership, and slowly and surely the people there are recognizing that their lives are way better off if they could live in peace with the Jewish nation of Israel than if they choose otherwise. And unfortunately, our country needs to choose sides. They can't have it both ways. Iran is the enemy of the United States of America. It's the enemy of Israel. They've sworn that. And we've got to do everything to bankrupt Iran to the point that they can't fund all this terrorism. And we keep on making policy decisions based on politics. And we can't. And American Jewry, Rabbi, has got to wake up to the reality, regardless of party, we must support congressmen, senators, and presidents that are going to support and stand with Israel, because our Jewish life in America is at stake right now.
That is true.
As well as the survival of the state of Israel.
I want to just go to Tommy Lloyd for a second, because you're like the guy that would, of course, take your team to Israel. But Tommy's not. And so how do you convince a guy like that to actually do that? And he comes back, and hopefully when Arizona comes through California next time, he'll be able to stop at Sinai and, as somebody who's not Jewish, explain to us why he did that and really helped us.
Well, talk to the coaches at Arizona and Kansas State, and they will tell you they had the experience of a lifetime, as did their kids. It was just absolutely nothing like it. And he could hardly wait to go back. And those guys are all now advocates of the state of Israel. And so if I encourage your listeners to look into the Athletes for Israel and look to support it, because it's run very, very efficiently. And how about this? Like, you can have impact on having student athletes, the vast majority of whom in basketball are African American, and you can send them to Israel to see for themselves. And then they're going to come back to this country, and the vast majority of them are going to be great allies. And we and that's what we're doing. That's the work we're doing. And anybody that's listening can help.
I would love to pledge my support to help. And I know we have lots of Division I college basketball teams just sitting in this neighborhood. Maybe offline we'll chat about how we can make that happen as well. I just want to touch two things. One, the Olympics coming up, and Israel's going to be marching in. Obviously, every time Israel marches in, we have the reminiscence of the 1972 Munich Games and the massacre of those athletes. And now, of course, with some people saying Israel shouldn't even be on the Olympic stage. What does it mean when Israel marches into the opening stadiums in France, specifically this year, and saying not only should we be here, but we need to be here?
Rabbi, I don't really have an answer for that. I just don't. It just breaks my heart. I don't understand. I growing up in Boston, I didn't go to Boston University. I went to Boston College. And if you're from the East, you'd know what I meant. I went to a Jesuit school.
Yep.
I went to a Catholic school, and I was in sports. And being in sports and being at a Catholic school, I was always just trying to break down stereotypes. And I was just trying to be with my Christian or Catholic or non-Jewish friends and going, look, I am no better than you, but I am no worse. Mm-hmm. And for the world to somehow treat Israel differently than they obviously are treating anybody else. Again, I literally don't understand it. And I think a part of it is because they've been sold a lie and something that's just absolutely not true. Israel has 6 million Jews and 2 million Arabs living very, very well in the state of Israel. There is a population of the Palestinians that do not want to live in Israel as a Jewish state. They don't want to live with the Jews as a neighbor. They want to kick the Jews out. They want to kill the Jews. They want to rid that land of the Jewish people. There are very few Jews in Egypt. There are very few Jews in Morocco. There are very few Jews in Algeria or Libya or Lebanon or Jordan or Syria. Why? Because if they were there, they'd be put to death. They would be murdered. So I don't want to hear about genocide. I don't want to hear about apartheid. It is what it is, Rabbi. And here's what I suggest. We have got to live the best lives we can, being the best teachers, being the best friends, being the best American citizens, being the most generous, being the kindest, and representing and wearing our faith. And when we step out of line and we don't act accordingly, all we do is add to that stereotype and make it more difficult for our children and grandchildren. Be a mensch, be a mensch, be a mensch. There are people that are neutral, that are still undecided, that still don't know, and they are not going to take the sides of the extremists. You know what? My grandmother used to say, let them gang. Let them go. We're not going to change how those crazy people feel about us. We just got to keep living our lives. We got to protect ourselves. And we got to try and change the people that are sort of undecided, if you will.
When you're playing Kentucky or now Arkansas with John Calipari, do you think Calipari's in that huddle saying, just be a mensch? Or loves him going, just let him go.
In his own way.
In his own way. Something that you do off the court that many basketball coaches do, and actually the guy behind me, Coach Jim Boeheim, has really been a positive influence in my own life. I had a special needs brother that passed away, and the acts of chesed and kindness that he did for the special needs community was amazing. A couple of months ago, I saw on CBS Evening News this clip about a young man, Sam Cunningham, who what you did for him is something that can never be repaid. I call it an act of loving kindness. This is what you did for Sam, and I just want you to comment on why coaches like you do that.
Person. Picked the wrong dude. And they became friends. And then one day, Bruce gave him another, even more inspiring message.
Tell you what, you're going to get better. You're going to come to Auburn, and you're going to be my assistant. And he takes me at my word.
He believed it.
He did. And he is.
Today, he is the team manager, and so happy to be here.
Sam Cunningham, and the smile on your face just tells it all. Just tell a little about that story and what it means, how it's, when I say sports and faith intersect, you got to believe it when you see a story like that.
Well, we thank God my parents raised me to go to synagogue and to get bar mitzvahed and to be proud of being Jewish and to understand the responsibility of prayer and trying to observe Shabbat more often. And of doing mitzvah, doing the things that are good, and looking for, like, by the way, don't ever email me or call me or text me. By the way, my email is Coach Bruce Pearl at auburn.edu. Coach Bruce Pearl at auburn.edu. If you need something that you need me to do, if there's somebody that's battling cancer, if there's somebody that needs a phone call or something encouraging, you need an autographed hat or something sent to somebody, you're doing a charity, don't apologize for bothering me. This is what we want to do, because there's a Sam Cunningham out there.
Yes.
It's a 6th grade boy that finds out he's going to have terminal cancer, and all he's trying to do is get to the next day. And so we shouted out to Sam, and I just like, man, cancer, pick the wrong hombre, man. Pick the wrong hombre. You're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, and you're going to outlive this cancer. And he winds up outliving his cancer. And then we just stayed close, and I followed up with him, and sure enough, I made him a promise that when he got better, he'd be my assistant, and he is. He's a sophomore here at Auburn and living the dream, and he's an inspiration, to others. So, but look, Rabbi, as you know, I would way, way, way rather do that stuff quietly. Mm-hmm. I way, way rather do that stuff without notice. And it got some attention for whatever reason, but that's not what that's not why we do it.
Of course. And
there's more blessing attached to it if we could do it quietly. So therefore, if I can help to people that are listening to the podcast, I don't know how. You may know how. Please reach out to me and let me know how I can help.
That means more than ever, because when people not like you, but people in the sports world that are so consumed with winning, and it's important, and we love to win. At the same time, I think winning also has a different definition in today's world as well.
Winning does pay the bills. I mean, winning does keep you employed, and I'm happy to say that we've won 4 championships in the last 7 years. And Rabbi, I really do believe that God has blessed our program beyond what we deserve. And I honestly believe that he's blessed us in such a way that we can have this platform, because it just doesn't make any sense that Auburn men's basketball is a top 10 program. It doesn't make any sense that we get to play at Duke this year to represent the SEC, or, get to play the program. Now,
another good Jewish matchup.
I got to be John Shire. Absolutely. John wants to bring Duke over to Israel as well.
Wow. Love it.
And I better be careful what I wish for, But I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful, as I think many of us are in this country, for the opportunity this country gave us and gave our families. They saved us. This country saved us. That's why, when we start camp every day at basketball camp, we circle the court and I teach the kids how to pledge allegiance, and I teach the kids how to stand at attention, right hand over their heart, left hand by their back, and honor the flag. And we sing and we play the Star Spangled Banner. Wow. You've got to teach these lessons to our children. They got to hear the great stories about what a great country we are. We're not perfect. We've got challenges, but we're better. But we're better than any country I know. And again, grateful to this country. That's where my passion lies. Grateful to the United States of America for saving my family.
Yes. So tell us just real quick before we conclude about Auburn this year, what we're excited to see. I know it's crazy with transfer portal, NIL. I was waiting. I didn't get the call, but hopefully next year. So what are we going to see? What are we going to see this year?
Well, all I could say for anybody that's out there, support your own schools, NIL and collectives, support them, because we've never been able to give the kids anything that was an extra benefit. Now, it's a little bit kind of out of control, but the market is adjusting to the value that these student athletes have had and the impact they have on winning. And I think I'd rather have it that way. In a year or two, it's going to wind up, I think, hopefully, there's going to be a profit sharing model. It'll come in-house. Universities are going to be able to compensate their coaches and their athletes, and there'll be a more order to it. But in the meantime, right now, I've got a good team. I've got 10 seniors. I've got a lot of experience. The guys are playing well. I think we'll be picked in the top 3 or 4 of the SEC. We're usually picked in the top 6 or 7. We usually finish in the top 4. But I think we'll be picked a little bit higher this year. So I love my team, and I love our league. Our league is going to have 8 or 9 teams in the top 30 in the country. And you guys in the Pac-12, not in the Pac-12. You're now in some of them in the ACC, some of them in the Big Ten. You guys are going to be all over the place.
Yeah, no, it's a crazy, crazy thing. Well, Judaism does not proselytize, but I can tell you that there have been many Auburn basketball converts today because of your wisdom, your menschlichkeit, and really just your heart and your soul. It's really a pleasure to always connect with you, to do the work that we see on TV, but most importantly, to do the work that we know that you're doing to make sure that America is a better place, to make sure that Israel is a better place. And as we like to say, Am Yisrael Chai. Coach, it's wonderful to have you on Rabbi on the Sidelines. Look forward to seeing you on the sidelines, off the sidelines, and God willing, together in the land of Israel. Thank you so much for joining us.